For our next task, the boss wants to know which of our vendors have a credit total greater than 500. And for these particular vendors, uh, they would like Premier displayed in a separate column. For everybody else, they want normal displayed in that column. In addition to Premier or normal, the boss wants to see the vendor ID. And because we are going to be checking a condition, credit total greater than 500, we want it to do one thing if it's true, another thing if it's false. We're going to be using the SQL version of an if statement. So we're going to use the examples database, and they want vendor ID. And in the second column, it's going to be Premier or normal. And the if statement in SQL is two I's. So it's like I if credit total greater than 500. If that condition is true, credit total greater than 500, we want it to display Premier. So we need to put that in quotes. If it's false, we want it to display normal, which we also put in quotes. Okay, so with the if, first thing is the condition, then a comma, then what it needs to do if it's true, a comma, and what it needs to do if it's false. Now we're going to give this column a heading of customer type. And this is coming from the active invoices table. And let's go ahead and run it. And let me expand this up a little bit. And you can see we do not have very many Premier customers. Looks like one. So that answers our boss's question there. And moving on to the next one. Let's take our closing comment and move it down. Our boss wants us to generate a report for customer service that shows the vendor ID, year-to-date purchases, last year-to-date purchases, and the contact's first initial and last name, along with the phone number, and a column indicating if they should be red flagged or not. So basically, if they have not purchased more than last year, we're going to red flag them because they should be spending more money on our products. So we are going to use the if statement. We're going to check to see if the last year's purchases are greater than this year's purchases. Okay. And if that is true, they spent more last year, we're going to display red flag. Otherwise, we are going to display a blank. So that is the condition we are checking. We're going to use the examples database. We're selecting vendor ID, year-to-date purchases, last year-to-date purchases, and here comes our if statement. If last year-to-date purchases is greater than the current year-to-date purchases, that is true, we are red flagging the customer. If it's not true, we're just going to display nothing. So it's just a blank between the single quotes. Going to give this column an alias of need to contact. So far we got vendor ID, year-to-date purchases, last year-to-date purchases, and then either it's going to display red flag or blank. They also wanted the vendor contact first name initial and the last name. And then they also wanted the phone number. So to get the first initial, we are going to have to use one of the text functions. So we're going to use left, vendor contact first name, and we just want the first letter. And that'll give us the first initial. Going to concatenate that with a period and a space. And we're going to concatenate that with the vendor contact last name. And we'll give this an alias of contact. And then finally, we want the phone number, but we don't want a bunch of spaces displayed. So what we want is to trim off spaces on the left, trim off the spaces on the right, and just give us the phone. So we're going to do left trim, and in parentheses, right trim, vendor phone as phone. That is our last column. And this is coming from vendors. And we are going to sort the results by need to contact in descending order. Oops, and I can see I have a typo there. No wonder I've got red squiggles everywhere. And now they've disappeared. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this. And then you can see my results. And most of them are red flagged, although we do have some down here who are not. And that does give us the contact information that the manager needs to call. And once you've got this working, you can go ahead and move your closing contact down, closing comment down.